Here's the thing. There is one thing that is more important than having the right materials, the fancy gear, the stuff that is currently trending on the internet and on your favourite artist's page. And that is you actually doing the work and making something. Also, I have a confession. I spent hundreds of dollars on coloured pencils probably a year or so ago, and they've barely been touched. I'm still using the $10 pack that I got from the newsagents down the street. And while yes, I am aware that more expensive things can be better quality, can last better in your artworks, I think the more important thing to understand as an artist is that you can still make good work, you can still make great work, you can still practice your craft and get better at what you're doing while using stuff that's not that expensive and is a bit more accessible. And on top of that, there's also a little bit of an inherent challenge in trying to use kind of plain materials. So throughout these couple of drawing process videos, I'm using a mix of different things, kind of more expensive. So the Winsor & Newton Pro markers and brush markers would probably fall on the more expensive end of the scale, but I'm using colour pencils that are Staedtler Aquarel, I think is how you say it. They just came from the local news agency. They're pretty cheap and they are my favourite. Also using a cheap sketchbook from Officeworks. I did end up hating that, so I was sticking paper in over the top, but that's kind of part of the fun of trying to figure out how to make something work when it's not perfect. That said, there are a couple of things that I don't like to compromise on. When you find that style of pen or pencil or material, like it could be a Posca pen or a marker or a paint, when you find that one that really clicks with you and that you feel like makes your workflow easier, then I would say don't skimp on that one. Stick to the one that is making your life a little bit easier. Another good thing about being kind of non-discriminatory with the materials that you use, with trying to experiment with whatever you can get your hands on, is that your work is going to end up being highly unique. It's going to be a product of its own environment, something that's not replicated readily or easily. Of course, there is nothing wrong with taking influence or recommendations from your peers or the people that you admire. It's really cool to fold a whole bunch of different materials and influences in together and see what comes out, because hopefully it'll be something completely new and different. I've definitely had occasions where I felt like I can't start work, I can't do anything, I don't have the things that I need to do the work that I want to do. And I think that's a trap we should all definitely be wary of. So it's a kind of great habit to be able to make work with whatever you have on hand, especially if you're like traveling, things like that. You can pick up a cheap set of textures or pencils from a local store and see what you can do with that. That's always a pretty cool challenge. And developing that kind of adaptability and kind of resilience in my creative practice has been super helpful for the introduction of children into my life, because you never know when you're going to get a spare second or what kind of space you're going to be working in. And I think it helps us greatly as creatives if we are a bit more resilient and a bit less reliant on crutches such as needing to have the right materials or the right circumstances, the right environment, the right time, the right amount of time, the right headspace. It kind of speaks to a certain creative fitness when you can tap into that thing whenever you need to. And in that same kind of vein, another thing I like to do is steal materials from my son to use his kind of cheap and cheerful markers and pencils and see what I can get out of them. They are often a lot bolder and brighter than the way my work kind of skews, so it is a little bit of a challenge, which is kind of fun in itself. I think in the next and last drawing process, I'm using a mix of markers from his set, which is the cheap set from Officeworks, and markers from my set, which are the kind of fancy ones, the Winsor & Newton ones. They're one of the things that I don't really like to skimp on for the alcohol markers, because the colour, if you're going for like lighter pastel skin tones, the blendable sort of softer colours, the cheaper ones just don't really seem to get it. Their lighter colours seem to go a bit more like neon highlightery, and also with your alcohol markers, they will just dry up if they're cheap and no good. So I guess in saying all of this stuff, it is a little bit of trial and error, finding out what you can go cheap on and what you need to splash out on. But that's part of the fun and the experimentation of the process. So now that we have removed the impediment of needing to have perfect materials, what else stands in your way? I'd like to hear from you guys about what interrupts your process or holds you back when you're starting out. I've been thinking about it a lot lately in my own process. I've been on kind of a roll lately with being able to make work and to be happy with the work that I'm making. So I don't know what's changed. I don't know what's different. I got really stuck for a while there, and it is something that I find so fascinating about the creative brain and about sort of the wider applications of ourselves. How sometimes we can really trip over our own feet or just tie ourselves in knots and hold ourselves back from achieving what we can. But that's probably another tale for another time. I'm going to leave my commentary there for now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the drawing process that's in this video. Let me know if you have any questions about materials, creative process, thinking about being an artist, all that kind of stuff. Thanks for being here. I forgot to mention with these price notes that they are in Australian dollars, and some of them are a bit kind of irregular pricing because they came in packs. But it just gives you an idea of where I'm spending and where I'm scrimping.